Hi, it's Mary from A Girl, a Book, and a Mom. And I took a break. Well, not a break from reading, but a break from videoing for a while. So I have what I read in August and what I read in September to tell you about. So stick around. We just completed the first quarter at school, so I have a little more time. Everybody's into their routines. I'm sort of in a routine. But yeah, let's talk about first what I read in August. I read I read 10 books in August. So the first book I read was an audiobook that the girl and I listened to as we drove to our family vacation down in West Virginia, which was beautiful. We read The Hidden Gallery, which is the Incorrigible Children #2. I'll put it up here, by Mary Rose Wood. And I have everything written down. It was an audiobook. I really enjoyed it. She really enjoyed it. So I gave it 5 stars. The Incorrigible Children are raised by wolves, and they are being raised by a 15-year-old governess who went to the School for Poor Bright Females. So it's a charming little series. Being it's the second in the series, I'm just going to say that they went on to England, they live in England, to London, and book 2 is all about their exploits in London. So 5 stars. The second book I read is a library book, and it's All Adults Here by Emma Straub. This was 3 star. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great. It was like meh. It covers a lot of issues. But there's no depth. Like, yeah, like if you can think of a social issue, it's covered in this book or mentioned, but it's not necessarily delved into. So it fell a little flat for me. So 3 stars on that one. That is my dog, wondering why she's in her crate. The next book I read, and I read this one while on vacation, was Sad Janet. It basically deals with drugs for mental health and whether or not everybody has to take them. It's okay. It didn't really stick with me. It wasn't really exceptional, but I liked it. So I gave it 3 stars. It was pleasurable reading. Yeah. Then we traveled back from family vacation and we listened to The Unseen Guest by Mary Rose Wood. And this is the Incorrigible Children #3. And in this episode, there's still some mysteries that continue from the first 2 books. But this one, there is an ostrich on the loose. And, okay, sorry about that. I had to, suddenly I cut out. So there's an ostrich on the loose, and it's terrific. Hilarity ensues. 5 stars. Then we have The Power of Moments. I'll link it up above, over here somewhere. I did not like this book. I thought it was crappy. It was required reading for school, and I did a review of just that. I gave it 2 stars. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Blech. So, okay. The next book I read was an audiobook, and it's called Mediocre by Ijeoma Oluo. And I really enjoy her books. And while I thought... Okay, stop, rewind. It's called Mediocre, and it talks about the mediocreness of white men. And really, it more talks about the intersection of racism and sexism. So there was a lot in this book that reiterated things that she had informed in So You Want to Talk About Race, or other woke books that I've read this year. But then there were other things that were just sexism. And then there were some things that were the intersection, and it was really good. There were, I have to admit, she brings up football, and I was kind of like, huh? How is football racist? What? But then I had to stop and think about it, and I was like, hadn't thought about that before. Because, it just hadn't occurred to me. And so it was really good. I really found a lot of really interesting information in this book. And it helped me to check some of my preconceived notions, or open my eyes to racism that I didn't realize was racism. So I'm glad I read it. So I gave that one 4 stars, because there were some things that were just repeats of things I had already known. The next book I read was The Little Old Lady Who Struck Lucky Again. And this is a League of Pensioners book. It's by Catharina Ingelman-Sundberg. And her first book is The Little Old Lady Who Broke All the Rules. And it's about this group of 5 older people in Sweden, who are robbers. They're like their very own organized crime syndicate, and hilarious. Basically, they rob a casino, and there is a jewel heist and a tech-savvy police officer, and it is... Oh, and there's a motorcycle gang, and it's really very enjoyable. I very much enjoyed this one, but some of it got a little silly, so I gave that a 4 star. Okay. The next book I read was a man called Ove, which I think is supposed to be pronounced Uva. And he's this grumpy old man. He just wants to kill himself. But there's this like pregnant lady who moved in next door and ran over his mailbox. And it's really good. But I am not going to tell you anything more about that, because this was a 5-star prediction. So we're going to have to save that for when I go over my 5-star predictions. I've got one more to read. The next book I read was an audiobook called Dangerous Women by Hope Adams. I'll put it up here. It's historical fiction. It's a gripping story about these women who committed crimes and were imprisoned in England. And they were put on a boat and sent to a real boat. I mean, it's a real boat, and they get sent to, there's the girl. They get sent to Australia to reform themselves, and somebody ends up dead. So it's, which didn't happen, well, sort of happened in real life, but it's a murder mystery on a boat full of women convicts. So I gave that one 5 stars. It's a gripping story, and I totally didn't guess the ending. Not at all. The next book I read is 3 o'clock in the morning, and this was for the Buzzword Readathon for August. We're still in August. For Time of Day. It's a coming-of-age story about a father and a son wandering around Marseille for 2 days because the son has epilepsy and they're trying to get him off all the medicine. What are you doing? Okay, so this was 4 stars. I thought it was good. It's a nice short book, easy to read. So now that I finished August, let's move on to September. The first book I read was Winterhouse by Ben Guterson. It's the first in the series. It's about a girl who sort of has some weird things happen to her, who gets to spend her Christmas holiday at a hotel.
It's a great book.
Are you going to comment on this one?
It's a great book so far. I wasn't really listening. I was thinking in my head while we were reading it, but I only remember a tiny bit, and it has word ladders, and it's pretty nice, and that's all I remember. Goodbye.
Yeah. So there you go. I found it really good, although some of it was contrived, so I gave it 4 stars.
You listened to the whole thing?
I did.
Okay.
The next book I read, because I wanted something light and fluffy, was To Love and to Loathe, and it's sort of like a Regency romance. It was entertaining. I gave it 4 stars. It's by Martha Waters. So, love, duplicitousness, Regency romance. Okay, the next book I read was The Silent Patient, and I very much enjoyed that. I got it from the library, and I had to return it. So I don't have it with me anymore. But I was surprised. I was not expecting the ending, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I gave that one 5 stars. That's The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, I think is how you pronounce his last name. The next book was The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kiersten White. This is the Buzzword Challenge for September, which was dark. The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein is a book about, it basically is a retelling of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein as told by the orphan girl that the Frankensteins basically purchase and give to Victor. And it delves even more deeply into who is the monster. So I really enjoyed that one. And it's nice and creepy, good fall vibes. And the ending has me curious as to what actually happened. Dun, dun, dun. So there's that. And then I needed a nice light book. So this one I read on my Kindle, and I'll put it up over here somewhere. It's The Quiche of Death, which the title, I'm sorry, cracks me up. It's the first of the Agatha Raisin series by M.C. Beaton. And it's basically this woman runs a PR firm, and she decides to retire and move to a cottage and in a small town, and she's trying to fit in. So there's that. Next up was an audio book, and this was Klara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro, and I really liked it. It's about an artificial friend and her observations, waiting for a child to pick her, and then her observations of the child, and it was really good. It was good. There you go. There's my review. It was good. It's I don't know. I feel like I could say some like deep and profound things, but it was just really enjoyable to listen to, and because I did it during that big old commute back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And yeah, it was a lot. I don't know. It was good. It was really, really good. It was not terribly gripping. It was the coming of age sort of this artificial friend and her person and the struggles of the person and how it was interpreted by the friend. It was really good. Not that I haven't said that before. And then finally in September for my woke book, I read Dead Dead Girls by Nekesa Afia, and it's about this girl, Louise Lloyd, who thwarts a kidnapping attempt when she's young, and as she's in her 20s, black girls in Harlem are being murdered. And one of these end up basically where she works, and she's the person to find it. And then she has an altercation with the police, and she's sort of told, hey, you either solve this crime or you're going to jail. So she's basically forced to solve the crime. And it's really good. It explores the Roaring 20s as a black person in Harlem, which is something I never even considered. And it was really interesting, but it was also a really, I was eager to get home and read this. So that says something. And then at the back, there is there's a historical note. Don't know if you can see that. And it talks about the New Negro movement and the Harlem Renaissance. And it was really, really interesting. And I learned so much in that page and a half at the back. But also just reading this book, and I really enjoyed it. That one I gave 5 stars. So, now we're all caught up. This is everything I've read in August and September. I hope you're having a great day and your reading is going well. And I am always open for reading recommendations. Anyway, take care of yourself. Happy reading.